The file arrived in Dr. Nora Vásquez's university inbox on a Tuesday morning in June, with the subject line, "Linguistic analysis requested, urgent, please treat as confidential." It was from a Virginia State Police investigator named Yates, whom she did not know, and it contained a single audio attachment and a two-paragraph message that she read 3 times before she opened the file. The message said that the audio had been recovered from a digital recorder found at the scene of an ongoing investigation in Scott County, Virginia. It said that the recording contained spoken language that investigators had been unable to identify or source, and that 3 independent consultants, one from the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, one from the Linguistics Department at Virginia Tech, and one whose affiliation was not specified, had reviewed the recording without result. It said that her name had been given to Investigator Yates by a colleague at the University of Virginia who described her as the most qualified person in the Mid-Atlantic region for the analysis of unidentified or constructed languages. The second paragraph said, "I want to be direct with you, Dr. Vásquez. 2 of the 3 previous consultants declined to submit a full report after reviewing the recording. The 3rd submitted a partial report and then requested that their name be removed from the file. I am telling you this not to alarm you, but because I believe you deserve to know what you are being asked to look at before you agree to look at it." Nora sat with this for a while. She was 47 years old, a professor of historical and comparative linguistics at George Mason University, and she had spent her career in the specific subspecialty of language reconstruction, the forensic and academic work of recovering dead languages from fragmentary evidence, building back toward the original from the residue it left in successor languages and in the archaeological record. She had worked on Etruscan, on Proto-Algonquian, on 2 constructed languages used by isolated religious communities in the 18th century that had developed sufficient complexity to qualify as genuine linguistic systems. She had been called as an expert witness in 2 federal cases involving coded communications. She had never had a consultant decline to submit a report. She opened the audio file. The recording was 41 minutes and 17 seconds long. The first 18 minutes and 40 seconds were silence, not dead air, but the ambient sound of an underground space, the specific acoustic signature of stone and still air, and the absence of surface noise that she recognized from a research trip she'd taken years ago into a cave system in Kentucky. Occasional sounds, the creak of equipment, the brush of fabric against rock, breathing, multiple people. She could hear, if she listened carefully, the soft percussion of boot soles on a smooth floor. At 18 minutes and 40 seconds, something changed. It was not dramatic. There was no crash, no shout, no sudden event that the audio captured. The ambient sound of the cave continued, the breathing, the occasional equipment sound, and underneath it, or through it, a new sound began. Low. Below the range where she would normally apply the word voice, but not below the range where voice was possible. She had worked with recordings of throat singers and overtone chanters and the lower registers of certain liturgical traditions, and she placed the sound provisionally in that category, a vocal production, almost certainly human, made in the lower chest rather than the throat. Almost certainly human. She listened to it for 2 minutes before she went for her notepad. The sound, she was not yet ready to call it language, continued for 11 minutes and 23 seconds of the recording. Then there was a period of silence. Then, at 31 minutes and 4 seconds, voices, ordinary human voices, English, distressed, overlapping, too close to the microphone and too disrupted by movement to be fully intelligible. She could extract fragments, here and don't, and something that might have been a name repeated, and a sound that she identified as a person moving very fast across a hard surface, and another sound that she identified, with the particular chill of professional certainty, as a person falling. Then more silence, a long silence. At 40 minutes and 2 seconds, a single voice, close to the microphone, breathing hard, stairs. Then the sound of climbing. Then the recording ended. Nora sat in her office for a long time after the file finished playing. Then she put on her headphones, opened her analysis software, and started from the beginning. She worked on the recording for 3 days before she contacted Yates. What she found in those 3 days was this. The sound that began at 18 minutes and 40 seconds was structured. She established this on the first day through spectrographic analysis, a visual representation of the sound's frequency components over time that showed clearly the pattern repetition and variation that distinguished language from noise. It was not music, not chant in any tradition she recognized, not the ambient sound of the cave system producing acoustic anomalies. It was structured vocalization with internal grammar, with the repetition and variation of units that linguistic analysis identified as phonemic, morphological, and syntactic organization. It was, by every analytical measure she applied, language. On the second day, she worked on phonology, the sound system. The language used a range of frequencies that extended below normal human speech into the range that required the kind of chest-based production she had initially noted. It used sounds that had no equivalents in any language family she had worked with. Not clicks, not the retroflex consonants of South Asian languages, not the ejectives of Caucasian languages. Sounds that, she noted in her analysis log, a vocal apparatus that was either trained to an unusual degree or structured differently from standard human anatomy. On the third day, she worked on what she could extract of the grammar. This was harder. 11 minutes of recording was not a large corpus, and without a bilingual text or a translation key, she was working purely from internal structure, the way you work when you're reconstructing a language from its own residue. But structure was there. She could identify what appeared to be a case system, the same root unit appearing with different endings in what looked like different grammatical relationships. She could identify what appeared to be aspect marking on what she was provisionally calling verbs. She could identify a feature she had no existing category for, a systematic variation in the subvocal frequency component that appeared to correlate with syntactic boundaries, a kind of prosodic marker operating entirely below the range of normal speech. On the evening of the third day, she wrote in her analysis log, "This is not a known language. It is not a constructed language in any tradition I am aware of. It is not a code applied to a known language. It is a complete linguistic system, phonologically, morphologically, syntactically organized, with features that have no parallel in any human language family in the literature. The question of its origin is one I am not able to answer from the recording alone and may not be able to answer at all." She stared at what she had written for a long time. Then she wrote, "The question I have been avoiding is this. The previous consultants declined to submit reports or withdrew their names from the file. I have now spent 3 days with this recording, and I understand why. It is not that the analysis is technically difficult. It is that the analysis produces results that are professionally untenable. Results that cannot be submitted in a report to a law enforcement agency without implying conclusions that no academic linguist can imply in a professional document without ending their career." She paused. "I am going to submit the report, but I need to speak to the survivor first." Investigator Yates arranged the meeting. It took 2 weeks. Marcus Hale was not in a condition, Yates said carefully, that made meetings easy to arrange, and the legal situation around the investigation created additional complications. But in the 3rd week of July, Nora drove to Jonesville and sat across a table from the man who had come up the stairs alone. He was not what she had expected, though she would have been hard-pressed to say what she had expected. He was thin in the way people get thin when they stop eating regularly without noticing, and his eyes had the quality of someone who had been sleeping badly for long enough that the badly had become a baseline. He was polite, cooperative, clearly intelligent, and very tired. He looked at her with the measuring attention of a man who had told his story many times and had learned to assess, before he started, how much of it would be heard. She told him what she had found. She did not hedge it. She gave him the analysis in plain language, structured language, unknown origin, no parallel in any human language family. She showed him the spectrographic analysis on her laptop. She explained the subvocal frequency component, the prosodic markers, the grammatical structure she had provisionally identified. He looked at the spectrogram for a long time. Then he said, "Where is it coming from, the recording?" "The recorder was on your person during the second entry," she said, "according to the incident report." "In my chest pocket," he said. "Yes." He looked at the spectrogram. "So whatever made that sound was close to me." "Close enough for the microphone to capture subvocal frequencies," she said. "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. "I couldn't hear it," he said. "When we were in the chamber on the second entry, I couldn't hear anything like that. I didn't know—" He stopped. "I didn't know it was that close." Nora asked him what he had heard. He told her. She recorded the conversation with his permission, the way she recorded everything, and she listened to his account with the attention she brought to primary sources, fully, without the reflex to categorize or dismiss, letting the account be what it was before she decided what it meant. He told her about the lights failing. He told her about the 12 minutes in the dark. He told her about the sounds he could hear, which were not the language on the recording, but something else, something that he described with the careful precision of a traumatized scientist doing his best to report accurately. Like the sound the chamber made when it was empty, but the chamber wasn't empty, and the sound was moving. He told her about climbing the stairs in the dark, one hand on the wall, counting the steps. He told her about the sound that followed him up the stairs, distant at first, then closer, then stopping when he reached the surface. He told her that the steel plate on the entrance made him feel better for approximately 2 weeks, before it stopped making him feel better. "What changed?" she asked. He looked at his hands. "I started dreaming in it," he said. "The language on your recording. I don't know if that's what it is. I've never heard the recording. I don't know what it sounds like. But I started dreaming in something that isn't English and isn't anything I've studied. And when I wake up, I can almost hold on to it, and then it goes." He paused. "It started about 3 weeks after I came out. It hasn't stopped." Nora did not say anything for a moment. She was a scientist, and she was sitting across from a survivor of a fatal incident and being told that he was dreaming in the language she had spent 3 days analyzing, and she was holding, carefully, the line between professional assessment and the thing on the other side of that line that the previous consultants had apparently crossed. She asked, "Can you write down what you remember from the dreams?" He looked at her. "I've tried. It doesn't survive being written down. I wake up and I know there were words, and I can feel the shape of the grammar. It's very distinctive, the grammar. There's something it does that English doesn't do, but when I try to put it on paper, it's gone." He paused. "Like trying to remember a word in a language you don't speak. You know you knew it. You can feel the space it was in." Nora understood this. She understood it more specifically than she wanted to. She submitted her report to Yates in August. She submitted it completely. The full analysis, the spectrographic data, the phonological inventory, the grammatical structure, the assessment of frequency range and vocal production requirements. She submitted it with a cover letter that she rewrote 4 times before she got it to a version she could send. The cover letter said, "The language on the recording is not a known language. It is not derivable from any known language family. It demonstrates a level of structural complexity that requires a speaking community of sufficient size and duration to produce that complexity. A language does not develop case systems and aspect marking in isolation or over a short period of time. Whatever produced this language has been producing it for a very long time. I cannot tell you what that means for your investigation. I can tell you that it is the most significant linguistic discovery of my career, and that I would give a great deal to know more about it, and that I hope, professionally and personally, that the opportunity to know more about it does not arise. Yates called her after he received the report. He thanked her. He told her that the 3 people who had gone into the cave on the second entry and not come out had still not been found, which she already knew. He told her that the investigation was ongoing. He told her that the steel plate on the entrance had been found ajar on 2 occasions by the sheriff's deputy assigned to check it monthly, and that on both occasions it had been resealed, and that the forensic team that examined the plate had found no tool marks or mechanical explanation for why a bolted steel plate would swing partially open from the inside. From the inside. Nora said, "Thank you for telling me." She meant, "I wish you hadn't." She thinks about the recording often. She thinks about the 11 minutes and 23 seconds of structured vocalization from something close enough to Marcus's chest pocket to register in the subvocal frequencies. She thinks about the case system and the aspect marking and the prosodic feature she has no category for. The subvocal component that marks syntactical boundaries, that operates entirely below the range of speech, below the range of hearing in the normal sense, in the range where you feel a sound rather than hear it. She thinks about what it means for a language to operate partly in a register that bypasses the ear entirely, what it means for comprehension to be tactile rather than auditory, what it means for Marcus Hale to be dreaming in a language he never consciously heard. She has not listened to the recording since she submitted the report. She made this decision deliberately, the way you make certain decisions when you understand what the alternative costs. She has the file on her hard drive. She does not open it. She has, however, found herself 3 times in the past 2 months pausing in the middle of ordinary tasks, cooking dinner, walking to her car, sitting in a faculty meeting, because she has noticed something, a sensation she does not have a precise word for, the feeling of a grammatical structure that is not English moving through her mind, unannounced, without content, just the architecture of it, the case endings, the aspect markers, the subvocal boundary markers that she can feel rather than hear. The dreams are not like Marcus's dreams. She doesn't lose them on waking. They don't come with words. They come with grammar. Just the grammar moving through her sleeping mind in the dark, organized and patient and very old, as if something is teaching her the structure before it teaches her what the structure is for. She has not told Yates. She has not told her colleagues. She has not told Marcus, though she has thought about whether she should tell Marcus and has not yet resolved the question. She keeps the file on her hard drive. She does not open it. She does not open it.